standing immovable in the middle between the walls of raging water in the calmness. And don't think I'm over-exaggerating here. This is what training actually feels like. If you've ever grappled, fought, competed in a race, recovered from injury or sickness, you'll know what I mean. Mind and body become firmly grounded like the granite strength of a gargoyle perched atop its gothic spire. You see, anyone can be distracted. I mean, study a bunch of videos, do a WOD, throw around some iron, or you can become the iron. Physically, yes, but more important, mentally. Then you will, as Jackie Chan said, not let circumstances control you. You change your circumstances. From the hand balancer's routine to the breakdancer's freeze. From the powerlifter's squat to the monk's unshaken balance on poles. From the mountaintop to solitude in the wilderness. Exercising patience. The strength moves will come. Patience for 8-week cycles of muscular development. Patience for 20-week cycles of flexibility development. Otherwise, you hit roadblock after roadblock. So slow down. Stop being the Unitarian with your training and use this unmoving, concentrated, static training instead, which is the method I'm going to show you. Powerbatic static training. Some have called this brutal. Handstand positions from basic to intermediate, then to advanced. I'll get there. 10, 30, 60-second hold. Stances. Horse. Snake. Crane, lunge, stick for 60, 120, even 360 seconds. You know, when we train like this at our facility, every time a person drops or touches the floor, they actually amass another something special for everybody at the end. Take the wall handstand, for example. Ankles together, arms on your ears, nose on the wall. 5 minutes, no come downs. Every time you come down, it adds another bridge push-up for everybody. And do you dare try this on your own at home? Will you find where your true breaking point is and push beyond it? You can do it on your own, no doubt in my mind. There might be in yours, though, once you hit 29, 39, 49 seconds, but you can push through. And not only this, but all challenges in life. Do you see why I say the moves for the last? You absolutely need to listen to the first part of these messages to even be able to get into that headspace to do this. It's what we teach our coaches and even most advanced students. And then this builds level by level into mastery. Dyna combos, full cars of strength, flexibility, and skill. We only provide free content to inspire you. We don't even turn ads on. But if you'd like to take your training to higher levels, you can talk with me and my team in the next day or so. And you really will go much further than watching videos and using DIY courses by working with a sensei, teacher, or coach. You'll save 10 years of trial, error, and frustration, since you're getting to combine decades of experience, thousands of data points from an entire team. Or do self-study for 10 to 20 years. That's okay too. Either way, we have more videos coming up on the screen that'll help you, and I'll see you in the next video, or hopefully in training sim. This is your 1-year game plan for total, and I mean total body mastery. Lee Weiland, Pacific Rim Athletics and creator of Powerbatics. And yes, 1 year at minimum. Anybody?
Why? 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 This Wi-Fi in this whole like general area is like really not good.
Says otherwise is either badly mistaken or simply not telling you the truth. And I don't mean just losing weight or just flexibility or just building a planche or some kind of strength move.
Thank you for the love. I'm trying to open up my hips. That's causing back pain. But my ankles aren't mobile yet. So I'm trying to force it, and that's why I've been drinking. Oh, man. It does not feel good. But I feel so much better than I did yesterday morning, waking up. One day of just severe stretching. Every day of severe stretching, really. But what is going on here? Wi-Fi is cheeks. How? Whatever, I love mysteries.
I guess I never imagined that fish, like, you know, now here's the basement, we're having fun.
Hi.
Welcome to Mystery Files, where we take a deep dive into cases that span from the creepy to the truly bizarre, and everything in between. I'm Ryan, and today I'll be forcing my colleague Shane to hear all about the extraordinary sky trumpets. And at the end, you'll have to decide if the mystery is solved, or if it's simply a mystery.
I gotta get better at that. You said something about Aaliyah, I saw it. Aaliyah was. You were 6. I was alive when Tupac. Yeah, I was alive. I was born in 86. 87, really.
You know anything about these sky trumpets?
I played trumpet in High school.
Well, we're not talking about something that's inconsequential like that. In fact, I have some videotape that I'm going to roll for you, just so you can see what I'm talking about.
Bizarre sounds are being heard all over.
They have no idea where it's coming from. At first, they thought maybe it was like metal screeching on a train track, but there are no train tracks nearby.
Well, for the first time, we're getting to hear the 911 calls that have been coming into the local dispatch center.
We can't even see each other in the backyard. It's really hard to figure out what's happening.
As you can see, there's something going on out there, and we don't quite know what it is. What are you doing?
I'm taking notes.
You look like you're drawing something passing gas.
Just taking some notes to remember. It seemed like people hearing loud noises in the sky.
That's just a little taste. That's like not even the appetizer. It's like when they bring you out the water when you go to a restaurant.
Table water.
It's table water.
It's table water.
All around the world, similar videos have been captured of an unexplained phenomenon, a blaring noise rumbling across the sky with no identifiable source. Sometimes called God's trumpets, the sound has been described as metallic, evil sounding, and even apocalyptic. Sky trumpets have been heard around the world, from the coldest Siberian tundra to sunny California coastlines to Mr. Crocodile Dundee's home down under. Recorded incidents seem to have come into public circulation, largely correlating with the rise of phone cameras. The site strangesounds.org chronicled known examples of the incidents for several years and compiled a list of over 150 videos between 2008 and 2015 alone. Some say the first known example of these sky trumpets dates back to 2008 in Belarus, when an anonymous user uploaded a video to YouTube of the ear-deafening sounds. But the earliest credible video I could find comes from Tallahassee, Florida. Let's take a look.
Feels like it's getting close, Adele. There went something. What is it? That feels like it's getting very close.
Is that the noise happening now, or is it?
Yeah, this is a light one.
Wanna get the kids in the back here? Get the kids in the back. Get the bathroom.
Get the kids in the back.
As you can see,
I have energy because I want my life
But like I
back.
said, this is the first instance
So,
of this video.
That's more like weird noise.
I want to be able to move around and play basketball. And I'm, like I said, I'm going to be a old ass father, so I might as well be in shape
What are all these porno mags doing
before I
here?
have
I
them.
didn't look at this.
That's what goes on.
And I just want to show you guys how I'm doing it, even if I'm not saying much.
But like I said, that's far from the scariest occurrence. But before we get to those, let's take a look further back. Without video evidence prior to that, some have pointed to what may still be
I want
in
you
long
guys
history
to see
as
the
evidenced
next
by literature. In the Lake
10,
Seneca area of
20
New York's
years of my
Catskill
life
Mountains, a mysterious booming
through
and so
YouTube.
notorious is known as the Seneca guns. In
And where you
1819,
guys have
Washington
brought
Irving
me
described them in his short story, Rip Van Winkle,
with your love
turning
and
them to ghosts playing nine
accountability that you make me have to stand by.
or fog benches. In the Ganges Delta, they were sold guns, and in Italy, brontini. Thunder-like.
All good things.
But it's still a bit of a chicken or egg mystery. With the frequency of recorded instances in recent years, one has to wonder how it isn't already a known scientific occurrence, or why it wasn't caught on video in the analog world, where chances to capture may have been rare, but certainly not impossible. It makes one wonder if it is truly a recent phenomenon. And if so, that feels kind of alarming, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not though, because
It's been referenced in literature. We haven't seen any evidence of it until the digital age, and now it's all over the place.
It also could be a sign that it's easier to edit video in the digital age.
You're talking about editing video, that still means that there are actual occurrences of it.
Yeah, maybe.
Literature, there's no editing of video, it's just people saying what they heard.
It's people saying what they heard.
That's evidence of it now.
The power of books.
But enough yammering. Let's actually review some of the evidence. Buckle your seatbelts, folks. What you're about to witness might be disturbing. The first piece of evidence we'll review is particularly well documented and occurred in the French-Canadian suburb of Dollar-des-Ormeaux in Montreal on February 21st, 2016. In a video posted by one of the witnesses, Adria Morel, she notes, quote, "All the dogs in the neighborhood are going nuts."
C'est quoi ce son?
What? Is she French? She's speaking French?
It's funny that you were lingering on that when there was weird ass noises coming from the sky.
Yeah, it's sort of like
A little bit. Now, keep in mind,
have you ever heard a train brake? Freight trains take quite a long to brake.
It's not that I have energy. It's just that I'm tired of feeling pain. When you get fed up, you're going to fight back.
Canada affirmed to the Montreal Gazette that there hadn't been any unusual meteorological conditions that night.
You get tired of feeling pain, you're going to figure it out, hopefully. And I'm tired of masking it with fucking medicine and trying to go to the doctor or just saying, oh, you know what, it'll go away. Man, I've lost so much of my life because of this. I'm going to go figure it out and then be like, you know what, I'm glad I did. Nobody else has to figure it out. You're being this pain. I can tell people how to fix it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one hell of an alarm clock.
God playing his Vuvuzela up there.
You still think that's a train?
Does that look like a train yet?
You dig a train. Did that for 4
I heard
minutes.
a lot of different trains in my life. Some of them sound freaky.
I heard a lot of
Was so
different
widely
trains in
witnessed,
my
it
life.
actually made the local news.
Strange sounds were heard across Terrace, BC early yesterday morning and lasted for about 10 minutes. Speculation about what caused it ranges from the aurora borealis to aliens, or it could just be a prank. But similar sounds have been recorded in other parts of BC and reported in other locations around the world.
What do you think about that, choo-choo boy?
Did you know that the northern lights make noise? Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No, I didn't know that.
I would love to hear that. I don't even know what it sounds like, but it's just supposed to be like a little like.
Like a little tingling out there in the sky. That's not sharp enough. I was hoping this had a point. Wait, go right through your chest.
Now, hang on a second.
Right through.
Now, hang on a second. Now, here in the basement, we're having fun.
Is that what we're having?
Yeah, that's what we're having.
Or are you sitting here like, what if it was a choo-choo outside? Or what if it was 2 birds outside? Fuck you.
Oh, I didn't know you were gonna get so bad about
Okay,
this.
so let's continue here. And these instances aren't limited to Canada. They've been heard literally all around the world, with eerie similarity. Here's Forest Grove, Oregon in 2016.
Annoying.
There were so many people calling in to 911 because so many people were not even really scared. They were just annoyed. They were annoyed.
Shut the fuck
At
up.
first, I'm sure there were people like, there's crazy sounds coming out of the sky, but after a while, you're probably like, hey, you're gonna kill me.
Do it.
Do it.
Come on.
Come on, do it. I'm right here. Kill me. Come on. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Predator. Now we have Finland in 2012. Just imagine being out on the walk in the forest. Fuck that.
These guys are pretty chill about it.
He's probably saying, what the fuck is that?
I just shit my pants.
I don't know if I'd be looking around to see where it's coming from. I'd probably start running.
Where are we gonna run?
I guess anywhere. See if I could like outrun the sound.
Why
I mean,
is
at that
that
point, I'm
in
desperate.
I'd probably do the thing where you click your AirPod and turn on the
Never
noise
do
canceling.
great shit.
The worst survival instincts on Earth.
Did any of these people die?
Not yet.
Then I guess I'm ahead of the curve.
Perhaps. And finally, coming back to Canada in Alberta in 2012 with perhaps the weirdest one yet. I can't even imagine what I would do if I heard that one in particular, because that one kind of sounds like screaming.
Poor guys are just looking to have a little fun out in the woods together.
And these are just a few of the numerous examples online, with these ones in particular being featured on news sites to verify their authenticity. There's been suspected trumpet videos in Russia, Denmark, Mexico, Sweden, Bolivia, Japan. I could go on. So what is happening? And is there somebody or something doing it? It's not just your Facebook-friendly great aunt who might now be QAnon falling prey to the fear of the sky trumpets. We are creatures afraid of the unknown. And in the face of that mysterious big brass band in the sky, communities have been thrust into states of panic. But fear not. That's why I'm here. To ease your mind. And with that, it's corkboard time. Let's get into the theories. Alrighty, what is that smell? Oh, it's your boy cooking up some theories, baby.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say
It's your
cork.
big
No, not cork, not cork.
Does cork have a
It's
scent?
theory time. That's why we're at the theory. That's why it's the theory for it. Anyways, theory one. You may want to put a pillow on your lap for this one, because the first theory is the sky trumpets are all natural, baby. Oh, I knew it. In 2011, the National Weather Service of Tallahassee made the following all-caps statement in an attempt to calm Floridians' imaginations. And given where they live, I can only imagine those imaginations are truly wild. There have been several reports of very strange sounds from the Woodville area since about 6:45 p.m. Eastern. The National Weather Service believes this phenomenon is being caused by thunder from distant lightning strikes, bouncing off a very stable layer above the ground. This is called ducting, and can allow sound to travel unusually long distances.
Stop lying,
The
guys.
sound has mistakenly been attributed to possible tornadoes. But
Stop
we at the National
lying.
Weather Service want to be very clear that there are no
Stop the
tornadoes,
cap.
and none are expected.
I mean, someone telling me there's no tornadoes is calming to me.
It kind of strikes me like when your parents would come check the
I love how they
closet.
lie to us like we don't know you lying to us. Like, you sitting in my face lying,
Exactly. It's not like the boogeyman
right?
shows up and
Cut
snaps
that
your
out.
dad's neck.
One of the foremost experts on the topic is David Hill, who wrote a scientific paper of the most likely natural causes.
Science!
He said that along coastal areas, the mysterious sounds could be related to giant waves. Surfers in the U.S. are familiar with the thunderous sound of waves hitting the cliffs. But more
Stop
than
the
that, it is
cap.
known that during tsunamis, in the wake of giant waves, there is a phenomenon in which witnesses report large rumbles and seeing mysterious fireballs.
Fireballs?
Yeah.
Where are the fireballs from?
I don't know, because most of the time when you're looking at a tsunami, you're going, holy shit, a tsunami!
I
And
get
you're
it.
running away like this.
I guess if a tsunami is coasting over land, that could cause a lot of issues.
Stop
I know
that.
sometimes when water gets into buildings and stuff, sometimes stuff explodes. So maybe that's where fireballs are coming.
No. Actually, let me educate you a little bit on science here.
Please, that's how the world works. We should all be as willing to learn as I am. Educate me.
God, get this straight. All right. Both the mysterious fireballs and the large rumbles, Hill hypothesizes, could come from a belt of methane erupting from the ocean floor, which, let me actually just, there's the ocean floor.
Oh,
Stop the
okay.
cap.
I see that.
While Hill prefers this massive
Can't hear a
explanation,
volcano,
some have
but you
wondered
can
if the
hear that.
nautical cause might be smaller,
Fuck
but apparently
outta
very mighty. This would be the reverberating mating call of the male midshipman fish, or as the Huffington Post called it, noisy fish sex, that has been known to cause a droning sound so loud it was described as torture by witnesses.
Yeah, you can't hear whales,
It's
but
not
you can
that
hear
big,
that.
true to size. I don't know if that's true to size, but I mean, just imagine like people out in the woods being like, "The fuck is that noise? Is it aliens?" And it's just two fish just
I guess I never imagined that fish like humped, like humped.
Well, it'd be more like.
But like there's certain creatures where they like,
Imagine trying to like hump while completely
heard of
submerged
turtle?
underwater. I guess
Well, no, I
things
didn't.
like
Well,
humans.
I
would
have
be
told you if you look at videos of sharks, it's very human.
Oh, it is?
Incredibly human.
So they're like back there like.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Oh. Well, good for them.
Oh wow, that does explain the loud noises. Thank you, Brittany. But how do you explain the phenomenon in landlocked areas? Hill says that sand dunes crumbling could produce loud booming sounds on rare occasions, but more likely he suspects earthquakes to be the cause in most cases. He personally experienced this phenomenon while in California's Mammoth Mountains, when an earthquake that was too small to detect without a sensitive instrument still managed to set off a booming sound throughout the range. It's possible that the sound of the earthquake below the surface reverberates at a pitch too low for human hearing to detect. But the after effects are within our range. Scientists haven't ruled out activity from beyond the Earth's surface. Most likely the sound of a falling meteor. And, of course, the goats. NASA has weighed in with some mind-opening knowledge. Essentially, that the Earth itself makes noises. It makes beautiful music on its own.
Get ready
Yes,
to
we
go.
know that.
Yeah, sit there on its sax jamming out.
Get off me! You're killing me! It's gonna shake us off like a bunch of fleas. That's the Earth. It takes care of us right now. Don't worry.
I hope so, yeah. NASA says, quote, our planet is a natural source of radio waves at audio frequencies.
Yeah.
If humans had radio antennas instead of ears, we would hear a remarkable symphony of strange noises coming from our planet.
Yep,
They call
I
these
got
noises
that.
tweaks, whistles, and spherics, and describe them as sounding like the ambient music of a sci-fi film. Can you demonstrate what a tweak sounds like?
Yeah.
How about
That's science.
How about a whistler? Let's move on to theory number 2. Human shit.
Human shit?
Not like actual human shit, like human shit.
Human shit.
Human shit.
Human goofums.
I think human shit.
Stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, many believe these phenomena could have more human causes, ranging from the understandable noise produced from electrical power lines, high-pressure gas lines, construction or mechanical devices, to more outlandish options like electromagnetic radiation, wireless communication devices, and submarines.
Cool.
Glenn
Thank you,
McPherson,
I
a high school teacher in
appreciate
Canada, gave a very confident and logical answer. Sounds like you.
Confident and logical.
Sure it wasn't a train?
I bet at least one of those is a train.
You're probably right, actually.
Thanks, dude.
I'll give you
I'm gonna be
two
right here until I feel better.
2 points for me.
He says,
And I might as well
actually solved
record
the sky
it.
trumpet mystery, but nobody cares. The trumpet sound is caused by 2 things.
I'm gonna be right
Large vehicles
riding
braking
around
at slow
looking this
speeds, and by
fucking
trains
body better.
traveling on curved rails. The outside wheels have to turn
Yeah, a lot
faster
of
than the inside
windows.
wheel because they're going a greater distance. But the wheels are locked on the axle, so the outside wheel ends up skipping, causing the noise. End quote. Glenn McPherson calls the other incendiary human theories more emotionally attractive options. Are we sure Glenn McPherson isn't Shane Madej?
He's right. This is the whole thing about ghosts.
It's the smugness.
It's the smugness. I
Train,
love it.
Train, very logical.
I
You're
love
very
this.
stupid for being scared.
Smug king.
Yeah.
Smug king.
Unbelievable. 2 Ks in the pot, you two. So let's get into the more emotionally attractive theories.
Sure.
Theory number 3. Spy planes. In this subcategory of human shit, wherein this shit is sneaky, there is a persisting conspiracy theory in regards to the sky trumpets that link the sound to HARC, the U.S. Air Force's High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, a program created to investigate the ionosphere and develop technology for radio communication and surveillance. Allegedly, the program also created pulse detonation aeroplanes.
Aeroplanes? We're gonna fly on an
You mean
aeroplane?
to tell me I could sit in a seat in the sky?
That's an affront to
What do you
God.
call that? An aeroplane? These planes supposedly could travel 5 times the speed of sound, could be used for spying, and it was suspected the technology could be weaponized in other ways. If these crafts were already being used or tested, whatever noise they make would likely be as unknown or strange to listeners as the sky trumpets. But what if it actually is almost in that sense like a double bluff? They're so loud that maybe people think like, oh, this is like extraterrestrial.
Well, if they were spying on us, we wouldn't know.
Why would a spy plane make this much noise?
They sound like bad spy planes if they're that loud.
Theory 4. You're gonna like this one.
Okay.
God, man.
Are you about to bat that?
If your hips are feeling all locked up and crappy and nothing really seems to work long term, this video's for you. A big issue I see with a lot of the common fixes on the internet for tight hips is that they're predominantly based around stretching, and they don't educate the hip how to actually move better with the rest of the body. See, it's important to first be able to open up space within the hip itself so we have more freedom of movement, but what do we do with that space once we actually have it? That's the question, and what I think a lot of people miss. In this video today, I'm gonna help you identify what is going on with your hips and what you need to do to properly address your individual limitations. Now, depending on many factors like your posture and whatever individual hip joint morphology or shape of your hip that you have, you will have a certain bias towards either internal or external rotation of your hip. Internal rotation being your femur rotating in like this, external rotation being your femur rotated out like that. Now you're going to be limited in one more than the other. Now everyone's going to be limited in one more than the other. I'm going to give you several tests to identify which one you're more limited in. If you're looking for a more thorough explanation of how these restrictions build up over time and develop, I have a lot of content on my YouTube channel that can help with that. These videos in particular are the ones I would recommend to check out, and they're going to give you a pretty detailed understanding of exactly what's going on. You can check those out for more. Now we're going to use several different tests here to identify what's going on. Let's start with the easiest one first, which would be just basic internal and external rotation of your hip. So you can just lay on your back, pull one knee back to 90 degrees of knee and hip bend, and then making sure that your femur stays in place, you're going to rotate around the axis of your knee. So it's important that you're not having your femur dump in and out to the side or anything. It's staying nice and in line. The next thing we're going to do is a straight leg raise test. This is a test for internal rotation of your hip. When you straighten out your knee, lock out your knee, this is called the screw home mechanism of your knee. You bias your femur towards an internally rotated position. And this is maximized more and more beyond about 45 degrees of a straight leg raise. So once you get beyond that level, you will need to access more and more internal rotation up to 90 degrees. And you would want to compare that from side to side as well. So generally, if you have somewhere between a 70 to 90 degree straight leg raise, that is one indication you have decent internal rotation. The last test we're going to do is hip flexion. Now, because of this bent knee position, this is more of an external rotation assessment. And because we need to go deeper, closer to our knee, this will also require more external rotation. Same thing applies as the straight leg raise test here. Just keep your knee bent and not using your hands. Pull it back to your chest, stopping once you feel like your hips are going to roll from side to side or dump under you, or you feel a restriction in your hip somewhere. Generally speaking, if you're getting beyond about 110 degrees of hip flexion, your external rotation is probably decent. So we have two different tests for both internal and external rotation. What's important to consider is that these things should make sense and they should align. If you have good femoral internal rotation, then your straight leg raise should probably be pretty good. So if I had 30 degrees of hip internal rotation, I should probably have somewhere around a 70, 80 degree straight leg raise. That would make sense. But if I had, for example, 10 degrees of internal rotation and a 90 degree straight leg raise, well, then that tells me that I am cheating one of those assessments, and I'm probably cheating the assessment that's better. So if I use a straight leg raise as that example of the one that's way better, but that doesn't make sense given my femoral internal rotation, then what's probably happening is I'm unconsciously moving through my low back in the straight leg raise. And generally, the lighter your legs are, the easier it is for you to cheat these assessments like straight leg raise and hip flexion. If I had pretty much full hip flexion, which would be 120 degrees, then I would probably hope that my femoral external rotation is somewhere around 40 degrees. If it's not, then that probably means that I'm cheating that hip flexion test somehow, and I should recheck how I'm doing it. Or in the case of you can't really tell if you're cheating or not, which does happen, you're probably best off sticking with the measurement that's worse and using that as your indication of where you're really at. So for example, again, if I had 10 degrees of hip external rotation, but a ton of hip flexion, I would just go off of that 10 degrees of femoral external rotation. If you're limited below those measurements, you have a decent restriction in your ability to access hip internal and external rotation. Now keep in mind that we're going to be using these assessments as retest measures to know an objective change that is going to help your hips. You should be able to do these exercises and retest and feel better going through them. Now, there's the first thing is that the heavier and more tissue you have around your limbs, the harder it is for you to experience a very significant change in range of motion when going through something like a straight leg raise or hip flexion. Just because you have stuff in the way, it's going to be harder for you to see a 20-degree change in one of these assessments. So keep in mind that these changes that are positive are going to be relative to you. But many people, if you have a big restriction in your hip, like let's say your hip feels blocked in internal rotation or hip flexion, then you should be able to notice a significant decrease in that block if you're doing the right interventions and you're executing them properly. Now, the first thing that really helps many people is to simply just open up space within the hips. There are two things we're going to do to help accomplish this. And I would do this regardless of whether you're limited in internal or external rotation. What you want to do is lay on your side, put a little towel roll underneath the bottom side, what we call iliac press. And then you can either just lay here and chill and hang out, or you can place a little kettlebell on top here, or you can have a partner very gently push down on the very top of your hip right here. What this is going to do is it's going to compress your pelvis laterally, which is going to open up stuff on the back side of your hips. And that's going to decompress your pelvis and open up more space for your femur to be able to slide back within the hip socket, which is oftentimes a huge restriction in many people. So I would do this on each side, or if one side is painful or uncomfortable, don't go on that side, go the other side, and just hang out here for about 1 to 2 minutes. Again, chill, relax, and breathing to help relax our body and decompress that space. Now we're going to very gently ramp things up and do a little bit of rolling and dynamic activity to help open up that space a little bit more. Now this needs to be as chill as possible, so support your head like you're taking a nap, and then the other shoulder's just hanging out. It's not done forward, it's just in line with the hip right there. And then all you're going to do is very gently exhale through your mouth as you bring that top knee forward. But you're only going to go to the point where you start to feel like your low back is about to move. Don't go to the point where it actually moves. Stop at that point, and then come back very gently as you inhale through your nose. Exhale, go further, and then inhale, come back. Super chill, that's all it is. It should be all hip movement pretty much. As a regression, if this is too much hip flexion, you can bring your knees down a little bit lower, and you can do it in this position right here. Same thing applies though, just make sure your low back isn't moving. Again, I would do this regardless of your limitation. This generally just helps open up space, because what's happening here is the top side is moving into more external rotation as the femur slides forward, as your knee goes forward, and the bottom side is going into more internal rotation as that side is being rolled back. Finally, remember that last missing piece is people don't educate their body how to actually move in and out of internal and external rotation, so that way their hip actually works with the rest of their body body, like their shin, their knee, and their foot, and also the upper body as well. So if you had a limitation in hip external rotation, usually more of a squatty-like position is going to be better for you to be able to improve external rotation and have that align with external rotation from the hip down to the foot. So this is one exercise I would recommend that you try. What we're going to do to set up here is get our heels elevated, and we're going to get about somewhere between 5 to 10 to 15 degrees, potentially maximally, of a ramp. And you want to make sure that whatever you're using ideally will allow your whole foot to be flat on that ramp. You don't want to necessarily use something that is going to just jam your toes into the ground like that, because that's not going to give us the foot position we're optimally looking for here. But if that's all you can do, it's not the end of the world, just that this is more ideal. Now, we want to have our hips a little bit wider than hip width. And if it's comfortable for you, keep your knees in line with your toes. If you need to turn them just a tiny bit out, that's okay, but you don't really want to go more than about 10 degrees of turning out. So we're just going to line Trevor up right there. That looks good. We're going to feel the foot contacts on the inner heel, the first metatarsal head, and the fifth metatarsal head. We want to maintain those evenly throughout this entire exercise and making sure that we're keeping at least 50% of our weight in our heels. Now, we have a little bit of a setup here and a support with this bar, so that way Trevor has something to hold on to. This could be a desk, it could be whatever is comfortable here, but it needs to be pretty low at about waist height, if not a little bit lower than that. So Trevor is going to make sure that he's got a stacked head over his rib cage, over his pelvis. So it might help Trevor to feel like he's nice and tall through his posture, and then he's going to exhale through his mouth. He's going to feel his ribs come down without his sternum depressing. So he wants to stay tall, but he's got a little bit of a rib cage down, stacked position. His eyes are looking straight ahead. Now all he's going to do is feel those foot pressures, get his weight, again, more so in the heels, and he's going to squat down, and he's going to keep his knees in line with his toes, not shoving his knees out because there's this left band, keeping him in line. And he's going to squat a little bit lower, right about there. So if we were to consider angles right here, Trevor is at about 45-ish, maybe 60 degrees max of hip flexion. We don't want to go much lower than that because this is going to keep his eyes towards the position of external rotation. So Trevor's maintaining those ribs down, again, without slouching, and he's keeping his eyes straight ahead. Notice how his pelvis is neutral. If it was a bowl of water, it's not spilling out the front or the back excessively. It's nice and neutral with the floor right here. Now, many people have a tendency to overly flex or extend, so you may want to film yourself and make sure that you are keeping that pelvis nice and neutral. This looks really good right here. It should look pretty much exactly like that. The biggest mistake people are going to make on this is that they're going to overextend their upper back too. So you want to make sure that you're getting a little bit of a reach or protraction through your shoulders without your sternum depressing again. And all Trevor's going to do is sit here and breathe in through his nose, out through his mouth, making sure he's keeping his weight mostly in his heels without losing those fifth and first metatarsal heads, keeping the knees in line with the toes. The last thing to make sure you definitely look out here is don't squeeze your glutes actively. If you do that, you're probably going to tuck under too much like this.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure, again, your pelvis is neutral, good, and you're just allowing your knees to stay in line with your toes there. Everything else will take care of itself. You might feel a little bit of tension inside your hips, but that's all it should be. It should be an active contraction of your glutes to where you feel like you're squeezing them. If you like this type of approach, check out my beginner body restoration program. It's designed for anyone to be able to do, and it starts with easy exercises to help open up space just like we did today, but it's much more progressed, and there's a lot more different types of exercises. But there's also a lot of considerations for asymmetry. So many people will notice today that one side was better at internal rotation, maybe the other side was better at external rotation, and that is going to be taken into account within this program as well. So check it out. I'm going to link it down below in the description. If you had a limitation in internal rotation, more hinge-like positions, more like a deadlift action, pushes your hips back and helps improve that internal rotation. So if you had a restriction in internal rotation, after doing these exercises, try this to help tie everything together and really improve that final key piece, which is integrating it with the rest of your body. What we're going to do is get a pretty long foam roller, ideally perfectly in level with the knee of the stance leg. About in line with the back of the stance leg. And the heel, if not slightly behind that, I wouldn't go much more than that. So that'll allow the stance leg here. So Trevor's going to get nice and tall within his posture. And he's going to feel on the stance leg foot, his inner metatarsal head on that side without losing his outside foot. So he needs to make sure he doesn't lose contact with that fifth metatarsal head either, but his weight is in those first two portions that I mentioned. And now he's going to place his right hand on his left hip. He's going to place his left hand on the back of his left glute right there. This is going to give him some support. He's going to exhale through his mouth, staying tall within his posture. That's going to make sure his rib cage comes down now, stacked with his head over his ribs, over his pelvis. And he's not going to exhale so much or depress his sternum. He wants to stay tall, but he just feel these low ribs come down. Now he's in a perfect starting position. Maintaining about 5 out of 10 pressure in that roller. Trevor is going to hinge at his hips, and he's going to set his hips back, trying to make his butt cheek as big as possible, pushing into that left hand. He's going to stop that hinge once he feels one of two things. First, that nice stretch in the back of his hip capsule. So that like a posterior hip capsule stretch, that is where he would stop. Or if he goes low enough to where he's going to lose his back position. If that happens, then he's gone too low. So what you want to imagine is that you are hinging your whole upper body together, and your butt is going back in space, and your chest is lowering to the floor. Where you stop will individually be different from person to person, but you want to make sure you're feeling those foot contacts. You want to make sure that your back knee is bending with you. But the biggest thing people are going to do to screw this up is that they're going to go into too much hip bend itself and bend this front knee, and they're going to do something like that. It's not what we're looking for here. So a really good cue is to keep your butt high in the air. So notice how this would be a good rep of Trevor. His hips are going back, and and he is going into more hip bend, but his knee's not really bending anymore on that stance leg. And once he feels that hip capsule stretch, he's going to hang out here for a second, and he's going to push through those foot contacts of the inner heel and first metatarsal head, and he's going to stand up, stopping that hip extension, that standing up process. Once he feels like if he goes up any higher, his low back is going to arch or his ribs are going to flare. So let's do that one more time. Exhale, ribs down, and then just go down nice and slow and controlled until he feels a slight stretch or that he might lose his back position, pushing through those foot contacts on the way up. Perfect. The first thing to think about on this that's really important is that we need to keep our zipper turned towards that stance leg. So we don't want to have our pelvis facing that side too much, nor do we want to have it to where it's facing the other side. Think about just a very slight turn of your zipper towards that stance leg foot arch. And that will allow you to keep everything in line and for you to access internal rotation on this side. So you see as Trevor goes down, he's still keeping his hip just outside of his knee right here. But he's not overdoing it to the point where he's spinning out of it like that. So again, like for everyone, you're probably gonna have to start pretty shallow and feel it out. You know you're doing it right when you feel that nice stretch in the back hip capsule and you have a nice alignment of everything from your head all the way down to that back pocket. It may benefit you for better form to place your opposite side of the stance leg hand on the wall. Just kind of use it with a slightly bent elbow to help guide your body down on that wall right there. And that could just give you a reference for everything moving down as a whole unit as your chest lowers to the floor. I wouldn't push into the wall too much. I would just use it as a guide. I would recommend doing this at least once per day. 2 sets of each of the exercises in the order that was presented today. Something else you may want to take into account is that you might need to upgrade your shoes. I find shoes are a huge game changer for so many different types of people with hip issues. Check out this video. I'm going to link it down below too. I'm going to show you an exercise that's so simple and effective for restoring internal rotation of the hip, you might just laugh once you see what happens. Many people try to do internal rotation exercises where they're trying to jam themselves into an end range of motion, force a big stretch, a big opening of the hip. But in my opinion, I think most people are better off actually starting off softer and easing themselves into their hips. What we're going to do is we're just going to lay on our side, and we're going to be in a 90-90 position with a foam roller in between our thighs. What we're going to be doing is getting the femur right here to very gently roll back within the hip socket as we get that knee ahead at the bottom. So it's a very gentle exercise, because if we just try to force ourselves into a position, try to use too much range of motion, and we just end up tensing our body up, we're going to just end up squeezing muscles and tissues around the surface of our joint and the hip itself, and that's going to cause a restriction of the ability for the hip to move back within the socket in the first place. So less tension is better here. Slower is better here. Stay within the means of what you're capable of. Now this needs to be as chill as possible, so support your head like you're taking a nap. And then the other shoulder's just hanging out. It's not done forward, it's just in line with the hip right there. And then all you're gonna do is very gently exhale through your mouth as you bring that top knee forward. But you're only gonna go to the point where you start to feel like your low back is about to move. Don't go to the point where it actually moves. Stop at that point and then come back very gently as you inhale through your nose. Exhale, go further, and then inhale, come back. Super chill, it's all it is. It should be all hip movement pretty much. As a regression, if this is too much hip flexion, you can bring your knees down a little bit lower, and you can do it in this position right here. Same thing applies though, just make sure your low back isn't moving. As a progression, you can get your feet on a wall, making sure that your feet are in line with your knees, which are in line with your hips. And then you'll do the same thing. So exhale out very gently, only go to the point where you feel like your low back is about to move, but don't go beyond that point where it actually moves, and then inhale through your nose very gently and slowly back. Exhale forward very gently, inhale back. This exercise is a key component in my beginner body restoration program, which is designed for anyone to be able to do, and it helps improve hip mobility restrictions and all sorts of different other mobility and postural limitations. Now, if you want something a little bit more aggressive and upgraded, you could do the following exercise, which is more of a dynamic roll with a kettlebell. And the reason why this works is because you're gonna be laying on your back and you're gonna be rolling your pelvis over your femur. You see what that did right there to the space within my hip? It pushed my femur back within the hip socket. And by doing this dynamically, you can continue to open up space. Just remember to go in a way where you don't have a lot of tension within your body. Because if you do, that's just going to restrict the space you have to move into. For the right person, this works so well that even high-level NBA players like James Harden does it. So we need a kettlebell or a dumbbell if you don't have one, and we're going to hold it in a racked position. On the side, we are not rolling to, so on the opposite side, because we're going to roll to the left here, weight is in the right arm, the wrist is straight. Now we're going to take the free hand and reach it above our head, and it should not be so high that the arm is off of the ground. It should be nice and comfortably on the floor throughout this. So you might need to go a little bit lower or higher, but make sure that you're not too low to where it's in the way. Now what we're going to do is pull the same side leg of the arm that's holding the hand back to 90 degrees, right there. And the most important thing in this exercise is that we keep the down leg on the floor, knees locked out, toes are pulled back. And now what we're going to do is we're going to inhale through our nose and roll the hip and the shoulder at the same time. And in this end range position, we have stacked shoulders right here. And this knee and back. Notice how the kettlebell is staying less the same place. It's not kettlebell. The most common mistake on this activity is that get tired or use too heavy of a weight, and then when they roll, the hip goes way too early and the shoulder lags behind it. If that's the case, make sure that you're starting the shoulder potentially earlier than you think you need to. So it is together, not separate. That is much better. The other thing that we see is people will again either get tired or forget about the fact that this down leg needs to stay locked out. The screw home mechanism when the knee extends creates internal rotation. So we want to bias that via pushing that leg down, pulling the toes back and keeping it locked out at all times. Another most common mistake in this is that people will not stack their shoulders properly. So as they roll over, this lags behind and then it's going to be back here and it's not going to feel too good, or it's going to be too far forward. And again, you're going to know because it's not going to feel right. You want to be perfect stacked right here, so the shoulders are on top of each other, and that way you're going to create a good amount of force into the ground to help you compress your hip to the floor more and bias more internal rotation. For the foam roller roll, I'd recommend doing it for about 2 minutes, very slow and controlled, or doing 2 sets of about 10 to 12 reps. If you're still struggling, I'd recommend that you watch this video on what might be the restriction as to why you struggle with internal rotation.
If you don't floss and you work out and you lift weights, do a lot of legs or don't do legs.
In this video today, I'm going to do the 3 most common types of hip pinching or impingement and how you can finally start to get some long-term relief from issues in that area. Now, not all hip pinching or impingement is created the same, but when I refer to this hip pinching, I'm referring to the femur getting blocked within its ability to rotate within the acetabulum, which is the hip socket, and therefore you're going to get some sort of contact of the femur on the rim of the acetabulum that we do not want. This can be manifested or felt as a pinch on the front side of the hip and hip flex area, and or that sort of bone-on-bone uncomfortable sensation in a deeper part of the hip, especially when we go into hip flexion and or hip internal or external rotation. Now, there's 2 main types of impingement I'm going to be talking about, depending on whether it's the side you're shifted towards or away from. And then I'll get into another consideration that will be important for both cases and is quite common. If you've ever seen any of my content in the past, then you know I'm a huge believer in that not all issues are created the same on both sides of the body. Now, it's first important to know which side of your body are you more shifted towards or lateralized towards. In your visual appearance or intuition, go off of what you're going to give you an indication of what movement limitations you have on your body, and there are very specific limitations that are associated with either the side that's higher and you're more shifted into, or lower and more externally rotated, and we're going to get into that right now. I'm going to show you 5 overall basic tests, and because that's an odd number, that means that you're going to check the boxes of at least 3 out of 5 on one side. So if you have 3 or more things that match up with you being shifted over to that side, that's the side I want you to go with. The first one is an active straight leg raise. Whichever side is better, with you keeping a perfectly straight and locked out knee going nice and slow up until the other leg starts to move or you hit some uncomfortable stretch or station, the side that's better is going to be more internally rotated. So that is one indication, if you have a better straight leg raise, that you're more lateralized towards that side. Hip flexion is a measurement of external rotation. So same thing, pull the knee back to the chest in a very slow straight line, and once you feel like the knee has to deviate off to the side in capacity, or your other leg starts to move, or you feel a pinch in your hip, that would be the end of that test, and whichever side is better. Usually the side you are shifted away from, and that would be your lower, more externally rotated side. We're also going to do a basic hip internal and external rotation test. So just sit in a 90-90 position, make sure you're feeling your sit bones on both sides, and then rotate your leg out for internal rotation and in for external rotation, making sure that you're not twisting your pelvis in any way whatsoever. Keep your hips perfectly straight ahead. The side that you're shifted towards will have better internal rotation, the side you're shifted away from, better external rotation. And now we're going to need a tiebreaker. And what we're going to use for this is shoulder abduction, because this is a representation of how well you can turn towards one side. So if I have better shoulder abduction on the right side, that's because I can actually turn more so towards that side of my trunk, and I would be limited in left abduction. So whichever side has better shoulder abduction, meaning you start right here, keeping your palm perfectly neutral, and you're going to slowly go off to the side until you feel like you have to twist your upper or lower body in any way, meaning that it's no longer just your arm, which is the thing that's moving. That is the end of the test. Okay, now that we have that, we can understand how 3 different types of impingement can happen depending on which side of the body we're going to be leaning towards or lateralized towards. For most people, they're going to be lateralized towards the right side, and this is because we have natural underlying human asymmetry, which biases us towards the right side. Discuss more in a video where I talk about the left AIC pattern, which I will link below. Okay, this first type of impingement that we have is going to be anterior, meaning forward, and this is going to be on the side most often, which is going to be more lower and externally rotated. So this is the side we should get away from. Now, the reason for this is because when we are more rotated and forward on that side, what's going to happen is because the pelvis is literally just more forward and anteriorly tilted on that side, we have the femur slide out into external rotation. So we're here. Now, because the femur is slid forward within the hip socket, it's in that externally rotated position. But when we start to raise that leg up, or we go into an internally rotated position of the hip, try to access that space, we're going to run into a block on that anterior and superior rim of the acetabulum right here. So as we bring this leg up, we're going to hit right here. Boom, that's not going to. Now, what we need to do to address this is get the pelvis to be pulled back on that side and promote more internal rotation of the femur to promote a more neutral resting position of this side of the pelvis right here. And there's a couple of exercises we can do to help assist with that. And I'm going to be showing you 1 exercise per type of impingement to keep this video condensed and also digestible. But if you want more information and more exercises for each type of impingement I'm going to be talking about, check out the article I'm writing alongside this, which I will link down below in the description. It's going to have a lot more helpful exercises for each type there. All right, now for this one, what you're going to need is something around or just below waist height, a little ball or some sort of an object like a towel rolled up, thick enough to where when you put it in between your thighs, you can still keep your hips in in line with your toes and your knees in line with your toes and your hips. And you're also gonna need a book about this thick. But what you're gonna do is place the side we're working on, that would be the left side for me, which is the more forward and externally rotated side, place that foot on the book. The book needs to be big enough so that way your whole foot can remain flat. And then you're gonna place that other foot just a half step in front of the other one. So that way the toes of the back leg are in line with the midfoot of the front leg. Take that ball, put it just above your knees and between your legs, bend both knees, and now your hips and just shift back a little bit. You're going to hit a point where you feel a little stretch in the back of your hip right here. It's not hugely significant, it's just a bit. So bend both knees, find that stretch back there just a little bit. You should never feel any pinching in the front of your hip. What you will feel is a little bit of your inner thigh adductor muscle kick on right here. And that's good because that muscle is helping secure your femur in the back of the hip side. So I'm here, leaning back a little bit, support your body right now, and just start to breathe into that position, in through your nose, out through your mouth. You might want to play around with a little bit of a posterior pelvic tilt to help keep your back relaxed and feel that stretch a little bit more. Throughout this, you want to keep your weight mostly in the heel on the back foot, but both feet are relaxed and they're flat. As you get better at this, you can start to oscillate back and forth like this with the ball. That's what it's there for. So you can start to push one knee forward, pull the other back, and as you do that, you need to stay heavy on the heel of the back leg, and you're really focusing on feeling that adductor inner thigh as you pull back, and then relaxing, moving forward. You can do that for about a minute or two. From there, you can start to place your hands on that and get a little bit deeper into it and do the same exact thing. Just make sure you never ever feel a pinch in the front of your hip because if you do, down too far. My Kinobody restoration program takes all of these principles over a period of weeks to where we can affect out of both sides of the hips. That's ultimately the goal and what helps people feel really good. If you want to learn more, you can click the link down below. You'll know you're successful with this if you see improvements in your straight leg raise and your hip internal rotation, as well as shoulder abduction, because those are representations of your ability to shift towards that side. Now, in terms of the side we're shifted towards, what we often see is pinching on the lower side of this acetabular rim right here. Now, this is because the femur is already in an internally rotated and adducted position. Now, if I were to go more into that, do you see how that could potentially have this femur hit right here? Because you can't really go somewhere you're trying to go if you're already there. Now, what you see as a result of this is, again, external rotation measurements, such as your hip external rotation and your hip flexion. Now, what we want to do to improve this and create more space with the acetabular is promote more hip abduction and external rotation without the pelvis. This can be accomplished with the muscle fibers on the backside of the pelvis of the glute max and also the gluteus medius, but more of the posterior fiber. Those are going to help you get that femur to move into more of an externally rotated position more effectively without a ton of compensation. Here's an exercise that's really good for that. The setup for this, we need to be in a left sideline position with a towel a couple inches thick underneath the lowest portion of the left ribs right here. And ideally, we have something underneath the head, so we're very passively side bent to the right, just very passively, but use a towel, yoga block, or you can support your head. But if you're supporting your head, just let your head relax. You don't want to actively hold your neck up. That's not what we want at all. Okay, now we need to make sure we have a straight line from the right hip to the right hip to the right shoulder.
I just went.
And to initiate this, we're
Got
going
water.
to this leg that way. And
Lotion.
make sure that our hips stay neutral underneath as we reach.
And
that's going to help us create some separation between the left
And I was like,
and this towel roll right here.
ain't
Or should at
chapstick,
least
I mean,
have that
lotion
up.
the same, butter the same thing as what I just.
Arching the back, maintain that tuck. Now we should feel left abs, and as we roll the right hip
Stay
forward,
lubricated, y'all.
square up the hips with the wall in front of us. We need to turn the toes up as far as we can go without the right hip rolling back at all. The right hip rolling
This
back
sun
any
is
extent
so
we've gone too far.
addicting, and I just
So
don't ever
Jarvis
bring
right about there as he does that.
motion with me.
Right lower butt cheek, glute max, and outside hip where the glute med is engaged. And for some people, we're just gonna have you sit here, hang out 3. If it helps you, put your hand on the ground, and push to get those left abs a little bit more. Now, progression from this is going to be: can you lift the right foot up without the right hip rolling back to any extent? It's got to stay forward. That should help you feel way more glute max on the right side. Your left abs need to stay engaged, and your hips need to stay tough as you do that. Common mistakes: people are going to engage their neck. So because their head is supported, people have a tendency to really crank their neck to one side or the other and use that to lift the leg, make sure the neck stays relaxed. The other thing we're going to see is people are going to shrug the shoulder or roll it forward in an attempt to keep the right hip forward. But don't do that. Make sure that the shoulder stays out of the hip. The last thing is that we need to make sure that the toes stay up and they don't start to roll down. Again, you can't get them all the way up too much. That's okay. Just as much as you're capable of doing. Now, this last one is really important to consider, no matter what type of hip pinching you have, because if you are forward on both sides of your pelvis, which a lot of people are, then you're going to be stuck in your ability to move into genuine hip flexion without hitting a blockage of some sort at some point, because you're not going to be able to keep your pelvis in a neutral position to get that femur to fully externally rotate. Because when the pelvis is forward, it biases the femur towards an internally rotated position. It can magnify either type of this impingement or slightly alter it, but the principles will be similar. Or what it can do is it can just create a situation where when you move into more hip flexion, you're going to hit the top of the acetabulum. Now, these people are going to be limited in hip flexion, and they're going to feel a pinch, especially when they move into that hip flex position around 90 degrees. What we want to do here is get the hamstrings to the pelvis back on both sides, get the pelvis in a more neutral position, and then we can move on from there. Usually doing like I'm about to show you is a really good starting point for either of these people, especially people who can get pinching in both hips, or they feel like hip flexion is what really lights them up. So for this, we're in this A-frame position with our feet flat on the ground, whole foot forward. both sides. We have a
Getting
ball that
better,
allows
more
our knees to stay in
comfortable.
line with our toes and our hips. It's not too wide, shoving our knees out, not too narrow, getting knees to cave in. Keeping it in line with both the hips and the knees. And then what we're gonna do is just place our hands on our low ribs and maintaining the whole foot flat. We're gonna focus on keeping the weight in the heels. So we don't want the toes to come up as a result of that. Keep the whole foot flat. But think about trying to drag your heels towards your butt. They won't move, but the intention will get your pelvis to slightly lift off of the floor. So your low back stays flat, but your tailbone is slightly off the floor. You feel your hamstrings on both sides engage. And you're gonna hold that position as you breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, all the air out until you feel a little bit of side out engagement, and then pause, close your mouth, tongue on the roof of your mouth, inhale through the nose, and you're gonna feel your rib cage expand. Keep a little bit of that side out tension when you inhale. If you're having a hard time finding your hamstrings, what you can do is place a couple of dumbbells in between your heels and your hips, and that'll allow you to drag back into some external object so you can find those hamstrings a little bit better. Another adjustment we make that we put you in more of a passive posterior tilt of your pelvis. We want to make sure the whole foot is flat on sides and you're still focused on feeling those heels. Regardless of the type of impingement or pinching that you see here, I would recommend doing 2 sets of about 5 breaths of these exercises in both the morning and the evening, or before you exercise and after you exercise. That will allow your body to start to adapt and create longer lasting changes.
Gregor Gallagher is a fitness entrepreneur who's best known as the creator of Kinobody. His method helps to achieve a lean and muscular physique through a combo of intermittent fasting, smart training, and lifestyle optimization.
Intermittent fasting is
in a sustainable way without sacrificing health. What would you say is the Kinobody philosophy?
Yeah, so the Kinobody philosophy initially was really all about looking like a movie star. And Kino actually translates to movie in German, movie body. And as I really tried to uncover how to look like a movie star, I started hitting a lot of roadblocks. Roadblocks with building strength, roadblocks with getting lean. And really the thesis, as far as looking like a movie star, is that most people are training way too much. They're in the gym, spending way too much time in the gym. They're following routines by guys that are on steroids, and they wonder why they're not getting the same results. I find less is more. 2 to 3 intense lifts per week is designed to trigger the strength and muscle required to support a movie star physique. And then really the game is getting leaner, and that is mastering the calorie deficit. The way I do it is I do fasting. I have a certain diet structure where I eat light into a big feast and have a little bit of dessert at night. The challenge that most people face, right, with fat loss and getting lean, and I'd say like if we're looking at the whole population as a whole, gaining muscle is not really as big of a problem as fat loss. Most people, really, their strongest desire is to get leaner, and most people's health issues are largely because they are carrying excess fat. So the real problem that we're solving in the majority of people is helping them get lean. And a lot of things hold true. Whether you're trying to lose 50 pounds or you're trying to get down to single digit, you have to be in a calorie deficit. And the challenge that we're facing is adherence. Most people can't adhere to a diet. I struggle to stay in a calorie deficit. I struggle getting lean and dieting. And it's funny because if you're just trying to get to like 15% body fat, it's not that hard. Like obviously there's temptations that it can be very psychological, but physiologically it's not that hard to get 15% body fat. When you're trying to get to 7, 8%, 6%, it is hard. And that was my goal. It was how do I actually get razor sharp lean? When you see someone like Ryan Reynolds or Brad Pitt on the movie screen that cut for a role, how do I get that look? When you got 20 pounds of fat to lose, it's actually like very comfortable and cozy. It's a psychological challenge. If you're in a calorie deficit when you're 9% body fat, it is harder for sure. And so I focus on how do I crack that code. And again, look, you can create any diet in the world. And sure, if the calorie deficit is there and the protein is there, that will get you lean. That's not the challenge we're facing. Is how do we actually create a approach, a strategy that people can stick to? And that's sort of been like the biggest sort of problem that I cracked for myself, and I shared it, and we've gotten tons of people that have really gravitated this approach and got really, really good results. But again, a lot of the fitness industry kind of is chasing the wrong goose. The goose is adherence. How do you get people to adhere to a diet? And that's hard. And sure, there's even at the highest echelon of fitness, the guys stepping on stage, doing shows, they struggle with it. They have days where they binge. They finish a show and they balloon up. So it doesn't matter how serious you are, how strong your willpower is. It's a losing proposition. If you have to get lean just on pure willpower, you will eventually crumble. And the more you try and restrict yourself and push through, the more you're gonna rebound. So I've been like, as far as what you asked, which is like, what is the philosophy, the approach of Kinobody? It's like, I always want it to be like effortlessly lean. I want to have that lean look, the right amount of muscle, but make it something that's effortless, where I can go out for dinner on a date, eat a great meal. I'm not just always dieting, pulling out my Tupperware. I want to have a cool social life. I want to be kind of James Bond about it while still having the physique.
I love that, Greg, with the Kinobody philosophy being about sustainability, because so much in fitness is about getting people to the result, but not dealing with the after effects. I feel many people can lose weight, get lean, but it's a whole different beast to try and maintain it and sustain it long term. I feel that is the goal that most people want to achieve, is that lean physique with enough muscle, enough strength, and having a life around it. And it seems like you've just experimented with everything, with the training, with the nutrition, trying to dial all these in to make sure that you're doing enough of each to get the desired outcome, but not doing so much that you're going to get burnt out. Because I feel that people that are trying to achieve what you've achieved, and your clients as well, they're doing something that is way too extreme. Too much training volume, which turns into junk volume, which turns into fatigue, and probably creating too much of an energy demand where they can't maintain their deficit or calorie intake for the day. I really want to pick your brain with what is minimalist training and why do you recommend it?
Ultimately, I was all about finding what actually creates that you want, what creates muscle growth. And really it comes down to progressive overload. If you have to get down to the absolute core, if you're gonna build big shoulders, what is required? Mostly it's how strong you are. If you can build up to 100-pound shoulder presses for 8 reps, you're gonna build a tremendous amount of muscle growth. Most people get lost into, these different routines and trying to get the correct and perfect amount of volume to produce muscle growth, but they're not actually getting stronger. I actually found that for me, when I just made the goal, I must get strong on key lifts. That became the goal. Okay, if you want to get very, very lean, you must be in a calorie deficit. If you want to build muscle, you must get strong on key lifts. Okay. Well, for me, the key lifts were incline press, weighted chin up, shoulder press, Bulgarian split squats, Romanian deadlifts. Those were my key lifts. I just made the goal. I must get strong on these key lifts, and I experimented training 5-6 days a week. I experimented training 4 days a week, and I found that 3 days was really damn effective. That's when I actually experienced the best possible gains. I got amazing recovery. And again, recovery, there's muscle recovery, and there's also your central nervous system recovery, which is your brain and spinal cord. And I found that when you do a really heavy workout one day, the next day, if you're doing a muscle group, you're not quite as recovered. Basically, by doing less, I actually got more results. And so minimalist training wasn't like the idea of minimalist training for me wasn't like I'm lazy, I don't want to go and spend that much time in the gym. It was like, how do I actually create the best physique? I always found that I get the best results doing a little bit less. The more you're training in the gym all the time, you're adding in extra exercises, extra sets. Sure, you feel destroyed, and sure, you might be sore the next day, and it feels like you're working very, very hard, but I never get stronger. And so most people have it mistaken. They think the sign of a very, very good workout is how hard it is, how sore they get, how much total volume there is. And I strap all of that. The most important sign of a very good workout is did you come back stronger? Because you could do, 25 sets per muscle group twice a week and be in the gym all the time. But if you're lifting the same 70 pounds on your dumbbell shoulder press and you're still doing 45 pounds weighted chin-ups and you haven't achieved a progressive overload, not stronger, your muscle gains are going to tap out very, very, very fast. When you hit a muscle building plateau, a lot of times the biggest cure for that plateau is to get very strong. If anyone hits, you understand this very, very well because, you do a lot of pull-up training. If anyone ever hits a plateau on their lats, how big lats can get, dude, just add 30, 40 pounds to your weighted chin-ups. If you're doing, if you only do 10 chin-ups and you're complaining about your lats, like, dude, you do not understand the game at all. When you get to 100-pound chin-ups for 6 reps, the question is, how do I get my lats bigger? The question is, damn it, I gotta stop these lats from growing. They're getting too big. I can't even wear a freaking jacket. And so it's like you just get very, very strong in muscle growth. And sure, there's some nuance, you gotta add some extra volume here and there, especially on stubborn muscle groups. But most people are just lifting the same weights day in, day out. And so I really stress that for naturals, doing less, tracking every single set, rep, exercise, pushing for personal records is what's gonna really produce the best results.
The simplicity of that is almost too good to be true, but in the sense it's focusing on the big picture because that is actually in your control. Progressing, being more objective with your training. I think it gives you more motivation too because you're seeing things trend over time. You're having a performance focus as opposed to just coming in and just using, I guess, subjective feeling as you said there, with how good the workout looks like. How much of a pump did I get? Did I feel tired or sore during and afterwards? These are indicators that would contribute to your getting productive. It's based on so many other things like how much sleep did you get, what's your stress levels, etc. Whereas overhead press for X reps, for X weight, did you beat that? Have you been tracking upwards over time? Strength correlates with the size increase. And I feel that that's just a really great way to go about doing things. And also how you've hit major compound exercises that have a large capacity for growth is key.
Yeah, and I'm all for people testing this out for themselves. Train, do a sensible high volume program where you're training 5-6 days a week and doing a lot of sets per muscle group. Run that for 3-4 months. See the progress that you make. See how much strength you build. Do DEXA scans. See the results. And again, I think that higher volume can work well in the short term when your body is getting accustomed to this higher amount of volume. But then quickly, when strength plateaus, muscle gains quickly plateau thereafter. So I tell people, look, you're making amazing results. Keep doing your routine. When you hit a plateau, do my routines. And a lot of times people just come back to my routines because they just start hitting PRs, they get stronger. And for naturals, we have to pay attention to our recovery. And there's something called adaptational reserves. There's only so much you have to improve on. And so when you're training a ton, not only, are you become more depleted, it's harder to really fight and push for those personal records. If you're doing 5 exercises for back, it is exhausting trying to add a rep here, add a rep there, add 5 pounds there. When you diminish training down to the key essentials, that's what Bruce Lee talked about, like hacking away the inessential. And so I found that when I hack away the inessential, just focus on a lot of the key movements and just pushing very, very hard on them. Okay, because no one can actually put in 100% intensity on 10 exercises and 5 sets each. It's not a thing. You cannot push hard to failure on 50 sets in a workout. Okay, in fact, 10 to 12 sets, hard sets is all you really have in a workout. You can push very, very hard on 10 to 12 sets. It's actually good. That's it. If you're doing 18 sets, 20 sets, you have to pace yourself. There's no way around it. In fact, the very nature, the very definition of intensity is it's limited. If you're doing a 3-hour workout that's intense, it's not a thing. Intensity actually means you only apply intensity for a very short period of time. If you do it for 3 hours, it's not intense by definition. The most important thing that I'll really stress is have the goal. Make the goal very, very clear. If you want to build a great chest, you got to get very strong. Very strong on incline bench, on flat press. And so if you focus on getting stronger on the key lifts, the muscle comes as a byproduct. But a lot of times people focus on, I gotta eat all this food to gain muscle, I gotta eat all this food. And it's very clear, if you're gaining a pound a week, it's mostly body fat. Gain is a very, very slow process, and it's a very limited process. If you stay natural, I'm 5'10", 180. If you stay natural, you're not gonna be 200 pounds, 5'10", there's only so much muscle you can gain while staying reasonably lean.
Now, your recommendation with the 3 times per week resistance training, do you feel that this also applies to people on the come up? Just say you've got someone new to lifting, new to training, want to build their physique. Do you feel that they could achieve your look with that minimalist, low volume, high intensity approach? Or did you find that you had to train differently in order to achieve this and then maintain it?
Absolutely could achieve the maximum amount of muscle gain with 3 workouts a week. I started lifting weights at 13, and for most of my teens, I was lifting 3 days a week, and I was into running then, so I do like running 1 day, 3 days a week. I did a little bit of bodybuilding, 4 or 5 workouts a week, and then for a couple of years, then by 19, I was back on the 3 days. And I have some pretty crazy one after from when I was 19. I still have 19. I already trained for 6-7 years of lifting weights, but I still have a pretty crazy transformation from 19 till my 24 or whatever. But you can get the absolute best results on 3 days a week. In fact, the thing when you're coming up with your physique, the question is, the goal is to get strong fast. Like, the easiest way to gain muscle when you're first putting on your first 15, 20 pounds of muscle is, you're lifting the 45 or even 40 pound dumbbells on shoulder press. You want to get that to 90s for 6 to 8 reps. Or maybe you're doing 60s on incline, you want to get that to 100s for 6 to 8. Maybe you can only do 10 chest. You want to get to 90 pound weighted chest for 5. The goal, this is what my group doctor emphasized, is take kind of beginners and intermediates and get them extremely strong in 6 months. Let's say you put on 60 pounds on a lift, right? So that's about, if you're talking about dumbbells, we're going from 60s to 90s per hand. You can go from 60 pound incline dumbbells to 90s. Dude, that's like you're supporting 15 to 20 pounds of muscle. It's usually about to gain 10 pounds of muscle, you got to put on 30 pounds per lift. So on a key upper body lift, you can put on 60 pounds. That's like 20 pounds of muscle. Just start from scratch. Okay, that should be really fun. For example, let's say I snap my fingers. Okay, I've never lifted weights. I'm right now. Let's say I was going pretty fun and pretty lean, and I would just focus on getting up to 90 pounds on weight just as fast as possible. I would be increasing the weight. I'll be chin ups at 200 pounds each week. I focus on. It is so much easier. Even when I already been training for 7-8 years, but I still had a lot of room to get stronger. I was hitting PRs like butter, week in, week out, PR. I was doing maybe 215 on incline barbell press, and then I'd be gaining 10, 15 pounds a month. My strength just skyrocket. Now it's not as fun because there's not that much more strength I'm gonna build. And I'd say my peak strongest was around 27 to 29, it's usually late 20s unless you start lifting later. So I started lifting at 13, so my peak strength was in my late 20s. I'm 31 now, so there's no more crazy bench or incline bench PRs going to be hitting. I'm just having fun with it. And that's also the challenge that you do. Someone like you and me, we'll hear sort of we'll hear 2 things. 1, oh, you must be on steroids. 2, oh, your program doesn't work. You haven't made any gains in the last year. Dude, you understand weights for 20 years, what happens? On a DEXA scan would be with the same body fat would be unbelievable. The best case scenario, your first year of training, you gain 15, 20 pounds of muscle. That's best case. And the next year, it's half of that. So theoretically, you could put on 25 to 30 pounds in 2 years if you're starting from scratch. And that would be very, very good. That would be training legit with pretty good genetics. The 3rd year, maybe 4 or 5 pounds. Right? 4th year, it's 2 or 3. After 5 years of real solid training and really impressive gains, you're just making micro improvements. And then when you've been lifting weights, and I've been lifting weights for almost 20 years, it's just the game's just having fun with it. It's just stay lean, don't get injured, and have fun. That's it.
That's huge. I like that final thing you said there with staying injury-free, because I feel that is one of the main separating factors from people that hold on to this advanced physique for as long as they want, because people get to a crossroads. As I said, they're going to get towards their peak level of strength, peak level of aesthetics, and part of them's not satisfied. And what does it take to get to that next level? Try and get stronger, lifting heavier, trying to progressively overload when you're already at this really peaked level. And I subscribe to that ideology as well, Greg, because the diminishing returns from trying to set those PRs to get a little bit more muscle and a little bit leaner and a little bit stronger when you're so advanced, it's just not worth it. And I feel that message isn't put out there enough because it's not seen as hardcore, or it might be seen as a little bit defeatist, or you're not trying to push your natural limit. But in my perspective, it's just wise.
You know what? It took me a while to really accept this, right? I was obsessed with crushing the PRs. I wanted to get stronger, and I was chasing some pretty crazy lifts. I managed to do 315 incline bench for 2 reps once. I have it on video. It was just not and again, it comes to the point where dude, when you're pushing that level and focusing on staying, the risk of injury is higher. And for what? If I was to add too much of a difference, and the law of diminishing returns kicks in. And so I think in fitness, it's tough, right? Because in fitness, we all want to get very lean, muscle, and sometimes it's hard to really accept that you're pretty much there. You always want that next little bit, and so it can be hard. I remember when I was first getting very lean at 19, I got to a pretty low body fat, and I still thought I had 5 more pounds to lose, and so what you have to do is you have to kind of separate. You can't have your entire identity based on how you look or how strong you are. If your whole identity is how strong you are, how low your body fat is, and that's where you get your sense of self-worth, it's going to be like a darkness like nothing else. It's never going to be enough. You're going to be freaking out if your weight goes up. You're going to be falling into patterns of dieting hard and binge eating. You're going to be pushing for PRs that you should not push for, and then you're going to get injured. You have to be a little more relaxed about it. Yes, focus on your goals and getting there, but I had to kind of calm down. Hey, no, we haven't even it's like I'm
figure it out,
totally cool with it. Like I even if I'm just doing a bit less weight than I peaked at and just kind of getting in some good reps and all that. Cool. Like once you the game is get very strong. That's what's going to be the easiest path to build the physique you want. Is get very strong key lifts, get to a really good level. And what's funny is that when you build your physique that way, the muscle is way more consistent. You can take a week off the gym, you still look good. When you're the guy in the gym doing 25 sets per muscle group in the gym 5 days a week, when it's arm day, your arms look great. Okay, when it's chest day, your arms look flat, your chest looks big. And then when you take a week off, you're like, where's the muscle going? And you feel like you're in this rat race. You always have to be in the gym, getting pumped up to look good. But when you build muscle off lower volume, getting very very strong, and even doing bodyweight training, doing some cool chin up training, one arm chin up training, one arm handstand push ups, like your physique, and you build that muscle off just getting very very strong, your physique always looks good. You go on a vacation, you miss a few days, and you look awesome. You have that muscle density. So the game is get strong, like absolutely get strong. But then man, once you're at a good level, if you're at a high quality level, then just you relax a bit and just you can even that's also why I recommend people do bodyweight training because let's say you build up some good strength on some lifts. Okay, you want to challenge yourself in a new way? Work on getting up to handstand push-ups, or getting up to some one-arm chin-up training or one-arm push-up. Like mix it up, and that's what makes it fun. As you've been training for 10 years, you like the muscle you built. Then just find new things to tackle, and then it just gives you a little bit of variety, and you will start to make very fast progress when you're doing something different. If you've never done bodyweight training before, you're gonna be weak at it, and then you're gonna make really quick progress. And then you go back to the weights. I actually, crazy enough, dude, I have all my DEXA scans, right? I have all my DEXA scans over 8 years. I actually hit my highest amount of muscle, the highest amount of lean body mass I had on my body. Literally, I was doing bodyweight training for I'd say 80-90% bodyweight training. I do a little couple extra weights here and there, but I was doing about 6 months of bodyweight training. And one of the reasons why I bodyweight trained for so long is because I injured my hand, so I couldn't actually grab a bar or do dumbbell presses, but I could do hands. I could do like one-arm push-ups, handstand push-ups. That was fine, and pulls were fine. So I did like purely bodyweight training for like 6 months, and then I went to weights, and I got so fucking strong. I did a DEXA scan. It was when I did a collab with Greg Doucette. I did a DEXA scan, and that my lean body mass was higher than just doing like 2 years of straight weights. There was something that happened. Like when you focus on bodyweight training, you get very, very, very strong. There's some cool advantages of bodyweight training, which I believe, which is one of them is like, if you're doing handstand push-ups or dips, your hands are fixed, your body's moving, and it's easier to activate muscle when your hands are fixed, right? Like imagine, for a quick example, imagine someone's listening right now. If you go over to the wall and you're pushing max force on the wall, it's very easy to create force. Now, someone gives you a barbell, you gotta push. It's a bit harder. You gotta stabilize it. It's harder. When your hands are fixed, it's easier to create force. So that's one of the advantages of bodyweight training. But when you take a break from weights and when you still build that strength, that power with a different modality, and then you go do weights, dude, I got incredibly strong. I think I built up to like a 380 bench, and dude, my lean body mass was super high. And I don't think I ever need to get to that lean body mass, to be honest. Like I like my size right now, but there was something to it. If I had to go back, if I had to recreate my best physique, I would probably do 3-4 months pure bodyweight training, and then I would kind of hit the weights very, very hard, maybe do a couple bodyweight moves here and there. But it's most people are actually missing out on a huge potential of gains they can make with bodyweight training.
That's a great recommendation there because you're essentially substituting the main lifts with weights for calisthenics bodyweight movements. It's not like all that time you invested into the overhead press is in vain. You're doing handstand push-ups instead. It's not like the heavy rows that you were doing were in vain. You're translating that back size and general strength to your pull-ups as well. And it just allows you another round of progress, as you said, setting new strength PRs consistently over time, trying to get stronger, and how that reflects into your physique. And of course, there's a whole thing you said there with the closed kinetic chain bodyweight movements versus open kinetic chain weighted movements. You're just going to start targeting different areas of your rotator cuff, which may have been neglected with weight training. And then when you transition back, you've arguably built some muscle, built some strength in those prime movers, and now you're armed with extra stability in your shoulder to be able to support heavier loads. So I'm really not surprised that you found that cyclical return to weights, body weight, vice versa, was productive for your strength and your physique.
Yeah, and like, the training's really, really fun. Like today, one of my workouts, I did handstand push-ups, just hard sets. I did some like one-arm chin-up training, one side to side. I did some pistol squats on your heel elevated, some pistols. I did some diamond push-ups, and I grabbed a dumbbell, finished off some lateral raises, and it was just a simple, awesome workout. But dude, I felt incredible. And it's funny when I'm doing heavy weights, I get hungry after. I want to eat more.
Yep.
When I start doing the bodyweight training again,
exerting so much energy.
I had the hardest time dieting in the world. My appetite is actually insane. Like it was very, very hard for me to teach myself to get very, very lean. The bodyweight training makes it a lot easier. Like I did that workout, and usually I'd be starving, and like I'm in a deficit, and I feel fine. And again, I've gotten very, very lean with just lifting. Okay, and it's a bit harder. When you're lifting heavy weights and going for PRs every week, and you're in a deficit, it kind of feels like you're swimming against the current. Okay. When you're doing bodyweight training, you're working on the one-arm push-up, okay? You're working on pistol squats. Maybe you're working on that Nordic row is awesome. You're exterior. Maybe you're working on getting up to handstand push-ups. And when the goal is to get stronger with your body weight and you're in a deficit, it just feels like you're swimming with it. Right? Oh, we're in a little bit of a deficit. It's not too bad. And so I actually am going to be dedicating like at least the next couple months to just kind of dial the physique and just bodyweight training and just focus on going from like 180 to like 174, 175, and then I'll probably do a little bit of back and forth. And again, it's like I think you get the most freedom and power when you use both, So yeah, because you understand like the game that like when you're like popping off the fitness scene, there are people that were just bodyweight, weights are bad, right? And there are people that were kind of saying, oh, bodyweight's bullshit, you can't gain muscle body, and bodyweight. And the people on kind of both camps, and the real power is when you can utilize both. You can build the best physique, you can utilize both. I think that everyone loves lifting weights these days. Like weight training is a huge thing right now, but still people are kind of sleeping on the power of bodyweight training. And again, I'll say one more thing about bodyweight training, okay? And I believe this to be very, very true. If you're someone, right, that's in the gym, and look, I will be honest, I am blessed with very good strength genetics, okay? I can start lifting and my body adapts quickly. Okay? I got a little bit of Nordic in my blood. I got something in my blood. I can get very, very strong, okay? But we also hit plateaus. We all hit plateaus. It is easier to progress on bodyweight training for whatever reason, okay? For some reason, it's easier to get stronger with your own body. So if you are in the gym and you've been stuck and you're stuck on bench press, you just can't get to a 225-pound bench press, or you can't pass a 225, if you just start working on getting very, very strong with your body weight, like it's easier to get stronger.
Sure,
Again, let's give a quick example, okay?
Especially if you got bands.
Boom, you do push-ups easily. You do 20 push-ups, great. Okay, put your feet on the bench. Okay, get to 20 push-ups. Okay, you do that easily. Now do side to side, where when you go down to the right side, you're using 70% on the right. When you go on the left, 70% on the left. Great. Now do that with your feet up on a bench. Now it's way harder. Okay, now that's too easy. Now get a basketball or soccer ball and have your non-working hand on the basketball stretched out away from you. And it's almost like doing a one-arm push-up. You're using a little bit of help with that one arm that's on the basketball. Okay, do 10 reps like that. Then work on doing a one-arm push-up. Like your body is primed to get very strong when you start using your own body weight. You know, same thing with chin-ups. Do chin-ups. Do side-to-side pull-ups. You can have a towel over a bar, grab the towel with your non-working hand and support you. Then do chin-ups. For whatever reason, it's easier, I find, to get stronger on bodyweight training. And there's this weird thing in the YouTube sphere that I've noticed. Some of the strongest guys, even with weights, have a background in bodyweight training. Even Alpha Destiny was big bodyweight kind of guy. And I started really getting into bodyweight training when I was a teenager. I went through Ross Enemy, where bodyweight training is the bad rep, is that the goal is to get stronger. Whenever you're going to the gym, you're trying to build a great physique, you want to get stronger. And so some people with bodyweight training, they just focus on just doing reps and reps and reps. Let's do 100 pull-ups this workout. Let's do 500 push-ups. And that it doesn't work very, very well. And then it's very inefficient. Same thing if you're going to the dumbbell, you're going into the gym and just doing 50 pounds on chest press. Okay, you can do 50 reps. The first 40 are bullshit. In the last 10, you're getting something out of it, but it's really not that effective. So with bodyweight training, you want to get strong. You want to build up to towel-assisted one-arm chin-ups, full range handstand push-ups, one-arm push-ups, your feet up on the bench. You can do something really cool bodyweight training. Is what I recommend doing is let's say you do one-arm push-ups, okay? Do 2 sets of one-arm push-ups, and then get a nice pump set after, just doing side to side for the extra reps and extra volume. So you do 2 hard sets of a really tough movement, and then 1 set for extra volume. It's kind of like my reverse period training thing. But I like to do 2 challenging sets and then 1 lighter set. Same thing. Let's say you could do like 5 handstand push-ups. Okay, great. Now do an extra set of pike push-ups, getting the extra reps in. So you can focus on getting stronger and then doing an easier variation to get the reps in. It feels freaking awesome. My easiest to be consistently lean, just to be at that very low body fat when I was doing some bodyweight training. It was easy. Like I stayed one summer, I just stayed so lean for several months with very little effort, and it was the focus on bodyweight training.
Once you understand the principles of progression for calisthenics, you're in. I feel that the people that talk down on calisthenics don't understand how to make exercise harder and ultimately more effective. So the main ones, as I was saying, Greg, was leverage-based changes to your body posture to increase load on the working side or the working muscles. Additionally to that, why not add weight to calisthenics movements? We've got dips, we've got pull-ups. If you want to add weight to handstand push-ups, you can. With those 2 changes, going unilateral, changing leverages within that, and also increasing the weight, you can't tell me that you're not going to be challenged for life with calisthenics. I think that there will always be something to challenge you within the 5 to 30 rep range with those parameters. And what I also like about calisthenics is it incentivizes you to stay lean, because everything that we're doing is moving our body through space. And if we start slacking on our training, our nutrition, we don't have the body composition that we want, then it's going to be harder for us to do these exercises. So it's built-in accountability if that is your focus. There's something about that stimulus to fatigue with calisthenics, which is just excellent in its own right. I just feel that when you're doing a workout, even if it is high volume, it just doesn't kill you as much as doing heavy sets of compounds on the weights, which allows you to stress your muscles, stay lean, and repeat that cycle for as long as you want.
Yeah, that's completely true. You don't feel as just burnt out, is the right phrase, from bodyweight training. I remember when I was doing a lot of push-ups. Push-ups work so well in the chest. And just like you said, you can add weight, right? So get a backpack, put like 25-pound plate in there. If you want to do heavier, do 50 pounds, whatever. If you start doing some weighted push-ups, even 10, 15 reps, 2-3 sets of 10, 15 reps of weighted push-ups, you get this tremendous pump in your chest and your triceps. It's completely untapped. When I was talking about doing my bodyweight phase, I did add some weights on some movements, and I did, I would add like 50 pounds and do diamond push-ups, feet up, and I just got a wicked activation. So it actually, weighted push-ups are one of the best things you can do to build a great chest. It works so well. Weighted push-ups. If you go up to 50 pounds and just start crushing 20 reps, I'm not a huge fan of doing very high reps, but with push-ups, 15, 20 reps, put some weight on it, it's really good after you do maybe some one-arm push-ups. But what's your favorite movement to do for triceps?
I would have to say for a compound exercise, the dip, because it is just so easy to overload indefinitely, and you've got a multitude of rep ranges you can use. You can change your posture on the exercise to emphasize the triceps. You can use different surfaces, so you can go from your parallel bars to your rings. It's just key as a compound exercise for overloading triceps when done with correct technique. And with bodyweight stuff, the overhead tricep extension is incredible. Just an anatomy refresher. When you've got your arm overhead, you're stretching the long head of your tricep, and it helps to recruit all 3 heads of your tricep.
I'm gonna talk to you guys in a minute. I gotta charge my phone up.
And the shoulder, and it's quite a key movement for last leg.